Happy day. Today, I am going to focus on data analytics using Python. Moving on to the topics for today's session, I am going to make you aware of the concept of data analytics, its applications, and the process how data analysis is carried on. And moving on to the tool that is widely used for data analytics is the Python. I am going to make you aware of the IDLEs available, the libraries. Moving on to data types, the operators, various control structures, sequence data types, and lastly, functions. Moving on to the definition of data analytics. We all know today in almost all the organizations, data is making a pivotal role, and analyzing the data is the most important task of the day in any organization today. So while moving on to the data analytics definition, it is a process of having the data being inspected, cleaned, transformed, and model the data with the goal of discovering the useful information, the patterns from the existing one, and predicting the future. So this whole process helps in decision making. While moving on to the applications almost or in all the organizations, while taking the travel industry, it predicts the flight delay. Moving on to the marketing, it predicts the life value of the customer. While taking the third application in healthcare industry, it predicts the diseases. While moving on to the social media, it is mostly used in digital marketing and sentiment analysis. Moving on to the sales, it always demands the forecasting. And self-driving car, the automation process, pilot-led aircrafts, and in credit insurance, fraud and risk prediction. While moving on to the types, how many types this data analytics is being done? The first one is the prescriptive analysis. Here, we are doing the business. We will just think of what kind of business we are doing and what do we really need of. Moving on to the predictive analysis, it is a way of you are thinking what is likely to happen in future. Third one is the diagnosis analysis. Why this has happened? That is the situation. We are going to think of it. We are going to find the solution. So it's a diagnosis analysis. And the last one is the descriptive analysis. Here, what happened is being judged by you. So these are the various types of data analytics that are prevailing now. Moving on to the process, how this data analytics is carried on. Actually, in all the organizations, the data is there. The organizations are collecting the data and they are storing in massive storage devices, that is the warehouses. From there, the data is first being deployed in one warehouse. Then the data is being cleaned using various techniques. After cleaning the data, you have to explore the data, you have to prepare the data by removing the noise, errors, etc. Finally, you take a model to build the data and you will analyze the data, you got the evaluation. So this is the whole process of data analysis. Moving on, why Python? There are many tools available in the markets today for doing this analysis. The many mostly prominently used languages are R, MATLAB, Julia, or you can take any automated tools like Tableau, Power BI, etc. But why Python is important? Because it's an open source, it's an interpreted language, highly general purpose programming language, and consists of many visualization tools, libraries that are available to perform these analysis. And this was created by Giordano van Rossum in the year 1991. While moving on to the features that Python is having, easy to learn with simple syntaxes, it is scalable and flexible, it has a huge collection of libraries for performing the data analysis, and it has a collection of libraries for visualizations and graphics, and it is community support. And the tools that are existing today for performing any of the analytics is SAS, Python, MATLAB, Vega, RapidManner, etc. Now moving on to the IDLE. IDLE is an integrated developed environment for doing our programs. So you can type your Python program in any of the notepad or in any of the editors. So the popular ones that are available are IDLE, Atom, Tawny, PyCharm, Spider, etc. While moving on to the popular libraries of Python, you have the NumPy, Matplotlib, Pandas, and Seaborn, etc. So moving on to the we are focusing in depth into the Python basics now. We have come across till now what is data analytics, its process, applications, and what are the tools available in the market now, and why Python is famous. So moving on to the basics, you should know first of all what a data type is. In order to store the information, you need a type associated with any data. That is called as a data type. In Python, these are the data types available. They are the numeric handling information like integer, a number and a float. And the other types are dictionary, boolean, set and sequence type. Under sequence type, we have the strings, list and tuple. So moving on to the operators. After the data type is decided, we need operators to perform all our calculations. So Python basically packaged with 6 different types of operators like assignment operators, arithmetic operators, bitwise operators, logical operators, relational operators and identity operators. Usually all these operators are used to perform the arithmetic calculations or make comparison between two different values, or you can have relate between two different variables. So Python comes handy with all these symbols. Now moving on to a sample example program, how we have to do in a Python. We have to first install the Python, and you can take any of the existing Python IDLEs, you can download it directly and you can open, you will get a Python shell like this. So you will get a prompt. Within the prompt, you can use print statement. Print is the output statement used in Python. So print whatever you have written in double quotes, it gets printed as it is over the screen. Now moving on, how we can work with variables. Variable is a particular type of element you can say, or identity you can say, where a value is being assigned to it. The value keeps on changes when the program is going on. So an example of, if we can take mathematically x is equal to some value, y is equal to some value, at last you can do some manipulations with the logical and relational operators and you can print the x and y values like this. So this is a sample code associated how the basic simple Python program is being written. Now moving on to the control structures. Control structures are the concept which are very, very important in any of the programming languages. So they do wonders. Whatever the logic we want to build for real world applications will be implemented through the control structures. These control structures are usually classified into sequence, iteration and selection. So sequence is a set of instructions which executes from the first line to the last line. Each sentence that you have written in your code, I mean the program code you have written, gets executed line by line and it will be executed only one after the other. For example, here if you take, I am assigning a value for the name parameter and the age parameter and I am going to print those two values. And those steps, sequence of steps can be shown as a flowchart or depicted as a flowchart like this. You are using a parallelogram symbol and a rectangle symbol to show how the values has been assigned and how the value is being printed. Now moving on to the iteration, we might not always require a set of sequence of steps in all the times for our real world applications. Sometimes we need some set of execution, some set of statements to be executed in any iterative order or looping order for certain number of times. So in that case, you will be using the iteration operations or iteration statements. In Python, the iteration statements are for loop and the while loop. So you can see here the syntax for I in range of 6 and you have to put a semicolon. You can give any of the statements. You can print the y value or you can increment the y value. So this pictorially can be shown as if I is less than or equal to 6 value, keep on the statements that are coming after that particular block, it gets executed for a certain number of times, that is the 6 times here. In a similar way, the same thing can be repeated using a while loop. Here the condition is written within the while. So while I not equal to 10 something colon, and you can write whatever the statement you wish to do or the logic you wish to implement. So these two are the iteration statements. We come with the syntax for loop and while loop in Python. Moving on to the third one, the selection. Here I already told you, sometimes we may require in real world applications statements that are executed line by line. Sometimes in real world applications, certain set of statements will be executed continuously for certain number of times. And the last one is we will judge certain statements or criteria. Based on a criteria, certain statements has to be executed in real world applications. Then we'll choose the third one called the selection type. In selection type, there will be a condition. If, the keyword that we'll use is if. So if condition, then the set of statements that is to be executed will be written over there. The syntax is if, condition, colon and the set of statements which you wish to execute. So these are the different control structures you are having within the Python language. Moving on to the sequence data type now. Now I have initially focused you on the data types that are available in Python. The data types that are available, we have just seen it's an integer data type or a string data type or a sequence data type. So very, very popular. Python is popular for its sequence type. The sequence type consists of 4 things which are very, very important. One is the list data type, tuple data type, dictionary data type, and the set data type. While moving on to the first one, list data type. Usually, but the values we are taking, the parameters or the variables we are declaring are one single variable. Suppose you just say x is equal to 10, y is equal to 20. So those are single statements. But in some applications, you may require the variables continuously. Suppose you want to calculate any marks, you want to take a sequence of 10 student marks at a time, then you will go for this data type called the list. So lists are similar to arrays in other programming languages where homogeneous type of data is being stored in all the other programming languages. But the highlight of Python language is it can store heterogeneous data type. So you can use a string, you can use a number, you can use a float separated by comma for creating a list data type. So moving on to the definition of list, it's a sequence of items that are separated by commas. You can create a location for all those items. That is called the list data type. And these are mutable. Mutable means you can add or delete the items within the list data type. Moving on to the second one, tuple data type. This is a special data type that exists only in Python language where the tuple is created using the curly braces. So tuples are immutable. You can't change the value of a tuple after once it is assigned. The processing is faster than the list data type. And the syntax for creating a tuple data type is you can say tuple is equal to curly braces. Within single quotes, you can have the character data or you can mention any of the numeric values. Moving on to the third one is the dictionary data type, which is uniquely available in Python language, where here in dictionary you can say it's an unordered type where you can change the index, and this has been created using the curly braces and it has a key value pair. So moving on to the syntax, how it will be created. You can say some dictionary 1 is equal to curly braces. You can take a name tag followed by a key value. So whenever you want to access the elements of the dictionary, you can either use the name tag or you can use the key value. Okay. And then the last type is a set data type. We already know in mathematics what a set is there. In Python, it's a immutable collection of unordered items, and the items are very, very unique in a set data type. And the syntax is similar. It is created using the curly braces. Now we see a sample code here how we can use the list in our normal programming using the Python language. So we can just declare some variable called colors, and within the square braces, you can just have within double quotes the list of values, right? Red, green, yellow, black, like that. And how to retrieve the values or print the values on the screen is you can take some X in colors colon, you can just print the X value. So this is a sample code. I have used a for loop, how to access the list values using a for loop. Okay. Then moving on to the last concept, Python functions. Okay, till now we have covered all the basic concepts of Python, how it can be moved on to the data analytics. I will take you to the next session. While we should know one more concept for the preliminary, for understanding the basics of Python, called the Python functions. So these, till now we come across the situations where you can have statements, singular statements or iterative statements or selection statement. Some situations, you might need some set of code to be executed as and when required. So such a situation in real world application can be solved with a concept called functions. And these functions are 4 types in Python. They are the user defined functions, built-in functions, lambda functions and recursive functions. All these functions will execute a certain block of statements repeatedly whenever you require or whenever you call in the main program. Okay. So for example, I have taken a simple example of how to create a functions in Python. You can use or create a function using the keyword called def. So def is the keyword used to create a function in Python, and after that you have to give a function name followed by a list of parameters. And within that, whichever statement you wish to do, and this example program does the addition of 2 numbers. So this part is the function development part where you are returning the value. In the main program, you will just call the function to some variable. So res is equal to add of 2, 4. So 2, 4 parameters has been sent to the main function. They are substituted over number 1 and number 2, and you are printing the value, adding the value and returning the result to the main program again. So print within bracket res gives the value of addition of 2 and 4. So this is a very simple way how you can create Python functions using Python. And one unique feature of Python is having the third type of function called lambda function. Here you will use the keyword lambda. Instead of using the keyword def, here you will use the keyword lambda. How we are using the syntax is some variable is equal to lambda of the parameters. How many other parameters you wish to include in your program, that can be given, followed by colon and the logic behind the function. What you want to do, either addition or subtraction or any other logical operations you want to do depending upon your problem, that can be given over there. And you can call in the main program print x of 3, 4. The first lambda function gives the addition of two numbers and the second lambda function gives the multiplication of two numbers. There 3 into 4 is 12. So this is how the functions have been syntaxed or used within the Python language. Thank you. In my next session, I will cover the classes in Python.